Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. And today's video, we're going to break down Manchester City's 1-0 Premier League win over Spurs. We're going to see how both sides look to approach the game in the first half, how City were able to go into halftime up 1-0, and if either side made any significant changes in the second half to try and change the outcome of the game. But before we get into today's video, don't forget to give our video a thumbs up if you do enjoy it. The bell below does give you daily notifications regarding our organic, unfiltered soccer/footy analysis. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. But before we get into today's video, let's get to the starting lineups. We look at Manchester City more of a 4-3-3. You have Sterling, Aguero, and Bernardo Silva up front. In midfield, they went with Phil Foden, Kevin De Bruyne, and Gundogan. Then we move to Spurs, more of a 3-5-2. They switch position formation. Son and Lucas Moura up front. Out in the wingback role, they went with Foyth and Ben Davies. And in midfield, no real surprises here. Eric Dyer with Dele Alli and Christian Eriksen. So now let's get to the first half, see how both sides look to approach the game and how Manchester City were able to go into halftime up 1-0. So when we briefly break down Manchester City against Spurs, we have to look to Spurs' shape. They moved to more of a 3-5-2 in this game. Without the ball, they were 5-3-2. They were squeezing a bit higher, looking to close in midfield and trying to pounce on Manchester City earlier on to try and force them into mistakes to break on the counterattack. With that being said, you had Son and you had Lucas looking to press the center backs whenever they could get on the ball. Gundogan was able to slide into space in between them to pick it up in those positions. And midfield, the midfield trio basically knew their job. If the ball was shifted out to Kyle Walker, Dele Alli would go and press him, and then they would go across. And if the ball pushed out to the left, then they would have Eriksen step to Zinchenko, and then the two midfielders would push across as well. And that's kind of how they went about their things. City were able to get by that. At times, we did see Dele try to step to Kevin De Bruyne. De Bruyne was intelligent and moving into that right channel, trying to pick up the ball, obviously looking to try to make runs into Davies. There was one particular example that showed why they were struggling. You would see Dele step to Walker, and all Kevin De Bruyne had to do was shift to the right to get the pass from Walker, and he was able to push forward in that regard. So that was kind of how they were going about their business. De Bruyne wasn't as impactful as he was in the Champions League game, but those were the positions he was occupying to get on the ball. You look to Phil Foden. He often maintained higher positions, sometimes ahead of Toby Alderweireld, sometimes ahead of Davinson Sanchez. And what really helped that is that when City were in possession, you would see Zinchenko kind of tuck into more of a half space role in that midfield to ensure that area of the pitch was protected. And then sometimes you would see Laporte kind of shift over to the left-hand side as he pushed forward with the ball to occupy that space as well. So that helped Phil Foden push forward, and often you would see him try to make runs into the box, and we'll get to City's opening goal in a second to show how impactful that was. But he was trying to break into the box to make those late runs to help out Aguero. But that was kind of how City were trying to go about things with the higher line. Aguero was making intelligent runs in behind, but lacking the service. Sterling was also making runs behind as well. Sterling and Aguero often got balls in the left channel, but they were unable to beat their marker in Davinson Sanchez, in Davies, or in Toby Alderweireld, who did come across to clear that danger. But a lot of what City was doing right was down in the wider areas. We saw an earlier example where the ball was shifted out from Laporte into Raheem Sterling, and he instantly blew past Foyth and was able to deliver a cross into the box, or he was able to get fouled, and that was key there. So he was winning that 1v1 duel, but we didn't see much of it in the opening half. On the right-hand side, Bernardo Silva constantly cutting in and getting the better of Ben Davies, and that eventually did lead to the opener. We saw Kyle Walker shift the ball out to Bernardo Silva, and he was able to drag out Dele Alli with an overlapping run. And what we end up seeing is Bernardo Silva cutting in on Davies and on Vertonghen, and this is where things get interesting. Sterling is ensuring that he's occupied Trippier. What we end up seeing here is Phil Foden making the run in between Toby Alderweireld and Davinson Sanchez, and we end up seeing the run of Aguero in between Trippier and in between Toby Alderweireld. So he's making that run there, and then Foden's making the run in behind. And because Trippier is occupied by Raheem Sterling, Aguero's able to nod that ball free because Toby is ball watching. He's able to nod the ball across to Phil Foden, who's able to nod his effort from point blank range into the net. And that sums up what Manchester Manchester City were doing very well. Bernardo Silva was winning that battle with Davies. We saw on two different separate occasions where you saw Zinchenko from a narrow position as well when he tucked into that left half space, deliver a cross into the box that flew through the 6-yard box, and Bernardo was able to pick it up and pull it back for Phil Foden, who fired a low shot on goal. Shortly after that, we saw Phil Foden get the ball in midfield and instantly turn Christian Eriksen, and he instantly delivered a cross into the box that was cleared by Vertonghen, and it fell to Bernardo, who wasn't closed down well by Ben Davies. He fired a shot on goal that Gazzaniga did save. But that was one of the areas where they're really thriving. Bernardo Silva cutting in from the right-hand side, delivering crosses into the box, but the Spurs backline did do well to cope with that pressure. Davinson Sanchez, Toby Alderweireld, Vertonghen did win key aerial duels because they had that 3v1 advantage against Sergio Aguero, who doesn't really offer much of an aerial threat without another body in that midfield, which is why Phil Foden's movement into the box was so pivotal. But that's kind of what Manchester City were doing. De Bruyne picking up the balls in that space, Phil Foden looking to try and get ahead of the center backs and make darting runs in midfield. You had Zinchenko tucking in. You had Kyle Walker looking to push forward with Bernardo Silva cutting in from the right. And Manchester City sort of had a route to goal, but they weren't causing Tottenham that many issues. So now let's briefly look at Spurs and see why they were able to create the best chances of the first half. So now when we look to Spurs in the first half, we look at Manchester City shape. We see that they are in a 4-3-3. If they do want to close from the front, obviously they could have the wider players stick out to the wing backs and have Aguero go 1v3 against the center backs. They could have the wider players push out to the center backs and then have the wing back or have the fullbacks push a bit higher. But basically, even when we break down their shape, this stemmed a lot through Manchester City mistakes and their inability to deal with Spurs' pace in the transition. Because when we look at it, their initial mistake in the opening minutes is John Stones again with the ball, trying to play a cross-field pass. Lucas blocks it, drops it off to Eriksen, and he's able to slide a ball into Son in that left channel to run at Stones, and he's able to take him on, cut easily on the outside, and force Ederson into a save. That's simple, and that's how they were going about things. Son, again, was the key man in the Spurs attack, a lot of it through transition. Lucas Moura as well, and the creativity of Christian Eriksen was pivotal, more so through his passing ability. The second opportunity that we do look at just kind of shows more of a breakdown. Eric Dyer was often harried by Phil Foden, who looked to lead the press, and his energy was pivotal here. But on this play in particular, Phil Foden comes to Eric Dyer a bit late, and he's able to slide the ball between Sterling and Foden for Foyth, who was playing at right wing back, and that forces Zinchenko to step to him. And when Zinchenko steps to him, he's able to locate Son dropping off to pick up the ball ahead of John Stone. So he picks up the ball and he locates Lucas Moura sliding out to the right flank, and then Son slides it out to Lucas Moura there, which forces, again, we see Laporte shifting over. But in between all of that, Eriksen makes an intelligent run across Gundogan and in between the two center backs to get the ball from Lucas to break on goal. But Laporte is able to track it well, and at a last-ditch attempt at a tackle, forces Eriksen to take a shot on goal that Ederson is able to save. But you see the breakdown there from Dyer to Foyth to Son to Lucas moving out to Eriksen making that deep run, and that's all it took right there. Shortly after that, we look to another opportunity where this time it's Lucas again dropping into the wider areas to pull out a marker in Stones, or to pull out a marker in Stones, and Davies clips the ball to him, and what he ends up doing is playing the ball across Bernardo and across Ali for Eriksen, and Eriksen slides the ball across Laporte for Son breaking free, and Son breaks free on goal, but he's unable to get a good shot off, and Ederson comes out again, and Ederson makes another save. But look at that in a nutshell. We see Eriksen's running, Eriksen's passing, Lucas being able to move from flank to create space, and they can't cope with Son's pace. Initially, we only thought Son would be able to make runs into the channels to offer much of a threat, but he was constantly breaking free because there was space available in Manchester City's midfield with Kyle Walker a bit higher, with Zinchenko tucking in, and just simple mistakes and quick passing because players weren't being able to close down efficiently. The final opportunity sums everything up in itself. Davies clips a ball over Fernandinho, and what happens there is that Son is able to drop off in midfield, skip away from Zinchenko and Phil Foden to break forward. We have Raheem Sterling trying to track it and Laporte trying to track it as well, but he's able to break through them and break on goal. And as he breaks on goal, like I said, you have Laporte there with him, and another key save is made. But just like that, you see Son being able to break forward, trying to get in, and then what happens there is that the last-ditch defending and Ederson comes up trumps once again. But you're seeing how Spurs are able to break free. Son's running, like I said, Eriksen's passing, and the ability of Lucas to move from flank to flank. So now let's get to the second half, see if either side made any key changes and how Manchester City were able to kill off the game. So when we break down the second half, we do see a more intense press from Spurs. Like I said, the two front players attacking the center backs when they were getting onto the ball. You would have the shuttlers pushing out to the wing backs as needed when they had to close down. And sometimes you would even have the wing backs push forward with the midfield battle set in stone. And you would have Dyer stepping to Gundogan there. So that's how they're going about things. But Spurs' attack still stayed the same. More so down the right-hand side because now Dele Alli was taking a bit of time to get over to Kyle Walker. And we saw a lot of their threat down that right. Kyle Walker being able to run at Davies and being able to run at Dele Alli coming across. On one occasion, he pulls it back to Aguero, and Aguero's shot is blocked, and then Davies clears it off a pressing Bernardo into Foden, but he skied his effort wide. Shortly after that, we do see Bernardo holding off Vertonghen down the left and skipping past Davies and Dyer, but his cross into the box was cleared by Sanchez. And one more time, we did see Walker break down those two markers again, and he pulls it back for Bernardo, who was free, and he located the run of Phil Foden behind Eric Dyer, darting into that space, but nothing was really built there. Whereas to the left side, the only real threat we saw from Raheem Sterling was when the ball was switched out to him. He ran at Foyth and was blocked off for a free kick. That is what stemmed in the opening period of the second half prior to a main change, and that also saw Toby Alderweireld, who was the key man for Spurs in that second half because Son was pretty quiet, try to deliver a cross or more of a long ball as City dropped off. He delivered a ball into the space between Walker and between Stones for the run of Dele Alli, and Dele Alli broke into that space. But when Ali broke into that space, what happened there was that he was blocked off by Walker, who did come across, and that was pivotal there. Eventually, we did see changes. Wanyama coming on for Dyer. We saw Leroy Sané replace Sergio Aguero after, like I said in the opening half, Fernandinho had come on for Kevin De Bruyne. Forgot to mention that, and that provided more of a balance with Gundogan pushing a bit higher. So with that being said, now you have Sané who moved to the left, you had Sterling through the middle, and not much really happened from there. We did see Sané with two decent opportunities, Bernardo from a quick free kick sliding it out to him, and he was able to cut in and drag a shot wide. And then one of City's better chances where you see Gundogan step to the Ben Davies, and he pulls it out to Lucas, who eventually we see Danny Rose also slide into midfield for Dele Alli, and Lucas clips the ball behind Rose for Gundogan now, who skips past Wanyama and slides it to Sané, breaking across Sanchez, and he pulls the ball across the box for Raheem Sterling ahead of the center backs, but Gazzaniga made a key save to deny that threat. So that was how they went about their business, and Spurs also had one more opportunity where it's Toby Alderweireld again from deep, clipping the ball into Lucas ahead of Laporte, and he flicks it over him, and Stones doesn't attack the loose ball that bounces, and Lucas is able to pick it up across him, but again, Ederson makes a vital save. So that back line, those center backs were struggling once again. Laporte had a poor game in the Champions League. Him and Stones here made culpable mistakes that Spurs should have punished, but Ederson did stand tall. Spurs made one more change, bringing on Llorente for Alderweireld, moving to a 4-4-2 diamond, but nothing really manifested from that, and City were able to hold on and claim a valuable 3 points to move back to the top of the table. When we break down the game as a whole, they had the threat from the wider areas, Bernardo cutting in, Sterling running at Foyth, but they did concede a lot of key chances to Son, and the movement of Lucas Moura out in the wider areas combined with Eriksen's threat with his passing range on the counterattack before the second half came. And even then, Alderweireld's long balls forced them into some nervy situations, and they had one sole opportunity to really test Gazzaniga. But at the end of the day, Spurs again taking a step back from the top four, whereas City moved back to the top of the table and just need to win now. But let me know what you guys think. Will Spurs finish in the top four? Will Manchester City win the Premier League? Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.